The Departed, the new movie by Martin Scorsese, a remake or, a semi-remake of Infernal Affairs, which is a terrific Hong Kong crime thriller. Came out a few years ago. Actually, there have been 3 Infernal Affairs movies, and this is basically a remake of the first one. A big, romping crime thriller from Martin Scorsese, who's been off the boil for a while, but I thought made a comeback with The Aviator, which I like very much. I mean, Gangs of New York, I didn't care for. I thought Bringing Out the Dead was absolutely terrible. Now he's kind of back on home territory. Some people are saying this is the best thing he's done since Goodfellas, and it's certainly harking back to Goodfellas, although it is much more of a kind of procedural movie, of a sort of Michael Mann-style movie than it is classic Scorsese. It is very good. It's not Mean Streets, it's not Taxi Driver, but it is very thrilling and ripping, and it's the standard undercover setup. The story is Matt Damon is somebody who is sent to infiltrate the police department by a crime boss, played in scenery-chewing style by Jack Nicholson. Leonardo DiCaprio, meanwhile, is a young rookie who is thrown out of the police department, in inverted commas, to go undercover in the organisation of the crime boss run by Jack Nicholson. So, on both sides of the divide, you have people working undercover, one pretending to be a criminal, one pretending to be a cop. And this is a very, very standard, very familiar setup. Nietzschean, you look into the abyss looks back into you, we are all monsters in the end, blah, 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 blah. Very, very well-known, well-worn, brilliantly done in Infernal Affairs. Here revisited with actually much better performances from certainly from Matt Damon than you would expect. Now, for those of you listening on the podcast who didn't get that clip, the Jack Nicholson thing was basically him doing
it's the voice he did in Batman.
It is. It's the sort of the voice of the Joker, isn't it? And it's, ripping, evil, brooding, sluggy, in that way that only Jack Nicholson can do. Now, Jack Nicholson is playing Jack Nicholson. He brings that whole history of Jack Nicholson-ness to the screen, and it is very hard to imagine anybody else carrying off that part, and it is a bravura performance. I mean, I have to say, it's not so much a stretch as a sort of extension. It's not like they've asked him to play, a gay ballerina. They've just said, Jack, that kind of slightly threatening, slug-like, fat, evil, but charismatic thing that you do. Would you mind doing that only a bit more and maybe a bit lower, and do it in a Boston Irish accent? So everyone's got these kind of slightly drawling ahs in there. You sort of heard him doing it there. He sounded a little bit like Robert Shaw in...
I thought there was the Irish, Macedonian, Greek accent from earlier.
As modelled by Angelina Jolie. Funnily enough, the really exceptional performance is Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg, who I've had a real soft spot for ever since Boogie Nights, but has been an up-and-down actor. And, he's had great talent, but of course he was formerly Marky Mark and therefore consequently not taken very seriously on screen. Gives a ripping performance as this absolutely foul-mouthed, abusive, aggressive cop who plays the foil. Yeah.
I said to Ray Winston when we spoke to him a few days ago, I said, there's no swearing in this, is there? He said, no.
No, there's no swearing at all. No, there is.
He was misleading.
He was absolutely misleading. And Ray Winston, again, clearly enjoying himself as a role in which they said, we'd like you to do very thuggy. We'd like you to do a Boston Irish accent, but if you can't do that, doesn't matter, just do Ray Winston. That'll be absolutely fine. The set pieces are very tense. There is, even having seen Infernal Affairs, and some of the set pieces are very, very close to the set pieces in Infernal Affairs, they move along at a pace. It's much more procedural than I would have expected from Scorsese in the past. If I have a reservation about it, it is that in the case of the original, and this may be something to do with, with the fact that it was a Hong Kong movie and that it was made at the time that it was, it seems to be slightly more metaphysical. I mean, it was called Infernal Affairs in the translated title, and it was much more about that hellish descent with two characters literally coming face to face with themselves in this, the how many layers are there in Dante's Inferno? Is it 7? Seventh layer of hell.
Since I read it.
Yeah, well,
it sounds about right.
Read it over a weekend. Just to kind
it's 3 or 7.
It's not always 3. Third floor is haberdashery and stationery.
3 is a magic number.
Yeah, but it's not the third level of hell. Anyway, there was much more of that metaphysical dimension in Infernal Affairs, which actually was a much shorter film. This, on the other hand, for considering particularly Scorsese's age, finds him looking back to his younger days. There's an awful lot of pop music on the soundtrack. There's a lot of kind of Gimme Shelter period Rolling Stones, which again, sort of evokes all those things like Sympathy for the Devil and that whole sort of demonic thing that they had going on at that point. Very good performances, very nicely shot, rips along, very enjoyable. It is slightly Martin Scorsese light, but it's very tense, very edge of your seat, and you come out at the end of it thinking, well, it's not going to stick with me and it's not going to haunt me like either the original did or indeed like Mean Streets did or like King of Comedy did, but it's much better than we could have expected. And of the rash of remakes, because it's one of those remakes, Hong Kong remakes, that's been brokered by these guys who brokered the remakes of The Grudge and Ringu and all that stuff, it definitely is the top end of that. There is the ghost of that film behind it, but it is more than just a remake. And go and see it for Mark Wahlberg, because he's great. Believe me, he's really, really good.
There are 9 circles of hell.
9, sorry.
In the Divine Comedy.
Thank you. Did that just come through on an email?
No, I just looked it up.
Oh, okay.
Bless Wikipedia.